Marc Fick, welcome to Challenge to Champion podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leroy. Thanks
I'm
a lot.
very blessed to have you here. We actually didn't grow up together. I grew up with your brother, but I've known you for a really long time.
Yeah. We actually grew up together.
Yeah, basically. And then we worked together. You got me my first job.
Yeah, at Virgin Active.
At Virgin Active.
Yeah.
That's 15 years back, right?
That's a long time. So look, it actually shows how old I am already.
And how old I've gotten.
Yeah, no.
But you're busy with some real interesting things in our hometown of Secunda.
Yeah.
And that is the actual reason why I have you here today, is to speak to you about a bit of what you're busy with, how you're changing the young people of Secunda, even some older people as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But before we get to that, I want to go a bit into who's Marc Fick. What gets Marc Fick going? Why are you so motivated to help other people?
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot, Leroy. Thanks for having this opportunity. Who's Marc Fick? I'm actually the only thing about me and who I am is that I'm a child of God. I'm a son who grew up in a loving home. I mean, you know all my family for a very long time, and a dad that's always proud, even when we messed up. He was always so proud of us, and I grew up in a loving home, always knowing who Jesus was. Always actually growing up in a house where, by the age of 10 years old, I could lead people to Jesus. And who I actually became was, I became a rebel without a cause, and someone who actually fell into addiction for 17 years. And when we think about our lives, we think about where we want to be. I didn't grow up in a house that was a house of abuse or rejection or even being bullied in school. But what I actually did was I became the person who was actually abusing people, who was actually with words, things in life that was not really good. And what happened was in my life is that I took the wrong turn. And because when you think about your life, when you think about people, we always get to a place where you idolize someone. And when you idolize someone, you can always go either for the good things in life, or you can go for the bad things in life. I'm a man who's actually married at the moment to a beautiful wife. I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids. And those actually are the reason why I changed my life. In 2012, my wife came to me and she said, Mark, there's no more us. And I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice to actually start changing my life. And now today, I'm actually running the race. I've changed my life in a total different way. And I'm excited about what's still to come.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more coming.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to where you said by getting some role models, getting the wrong role models.
Yeah.
Who did you idolize, or who were your role models, and how did that turn out the way that it did for you?
So look, I was a big fan of James Small. So I mean, a lot of people, again, it shows actually the age that we are now. But I mean, I idolized him and I liked him a lot. And the thing about James Small is that he was always in trouble. I mean, he was the first guy. He goes into a rugby game and he gets a red card. He goes into a nightclub and he gets into a fight. He is always smoking weed. He's always getting into trouble with girls. And that's actually who I started to idolize. And because of that, I started to make the wrong things, get into trouble in school, get into fights in school, get into nightclubs, doing the wrong things. And that is actually where I saw, when we in our lives, we need to actually see from the beginning, who do we like? Who are we focused on? Who are the people that we are actually idolizing? And if that is the case, and if it's not the Lord, then we are going to step into the wrong direction.
How did you find inspiration from the life of James Small without things like social media? How did you know what are the things that you should do if you want to be like this guy?
Yeah, look, everything of him was all around. I mean, he was a Springbok rugby player. We watched him on the rugby. He was always in the news. He even had a clothing line, no rules clothing line. And that also just said to us, listen, it's a no rules lifestyle. So what we need to do is, follow it. Follow whatever he says, and just do whatever he does. And it's so wrong. I mean, if you look at it, the way that I grew up was as I was brought up in a home that was always following Jesus. Actually going to Sunday school, learning about who I am supposed to be as a child of God. And what we did is we started looking into the world. At the age of 15, I actually met up with a couple of colored boys in our hometown area. And there's an area called Cecil Grove. And that's actually where I grew up. And I was, I had a lot of friends that was coloreds, and I just loved being with them. I loved actually spending time with them. And this is where things took a total turn into the wrong direction. I could actually live out this rebel with a cause, because now I'm also with the guys who are, teaching me of gangsterism, of teaching me how to do the wrong things, how to actually be the person that we thought we actually wanted to be. And when you start getting into that line, you're getting into that type of life, things are about to take a turn. And that's where things really started to become heated in my life. I actually met up with a friend at the age of 16, and this friend of mine also, he walked into his house. And when he came into his house, he actually saw his dad just pulled a shotgun into his mouth, and he shot his brains out. And this became my friend. And after we actually started to become friends, we were already, he's also a fan of James Small. I'm a fan of James Small. We started becoming friends. He was a rebel without a cause. He actually stepped in. We started doing the wrong things. We started going to nightclubs. We started to live the way that he lived. So very important. Don't follow the wrong people.
Do you still look at James Small?
Look, he passed away. He passed away. Unfortunately, he passed away in the wrong way as well. I mean, he did something. He went to a nightclub, or he went to a strip club, and he actually had a heart attack in the strip club, and unfortunately he passed away.
Now.
So that shows you again. I mean, you need to know who you are. You need to know who you are as a child of God.
Why do you think guys like him are able to sustain this type of lifestyle for so long, and not somewhere along the line get a wife or a brother or someone that just shakes them and tells them, listen, what are you busy with? This isn't sustainable. How's that possible that someone goes through this amount of time? I mean, if you're saying you were in school and you were inspired by him, that's 20 years ago, 20 years plus. So he has been busy with that for longer than that.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a choice. Everything in life is a choice, and you are free to make your own choices, but you're not free of the consequences of your choices. And I feel that sometimes, you people maybe might have felt that, I'm not going to go and try to help him because he's actually got a certain status that he's following. And I feel, we need to be the people that step in for other people. We need to be the people that says, listen here, I'm going to reach out to people knowing that they are on the wrong way. They're on the wrong path. Because, I mean, even in my life, at some stage, I needed to make a decision. And first of all, I had to almost lose something before I make the decision to turn back to what I was supposed to turn back all along. And that's exactly our lives. I don't know how he grew up. I don't know the household he grew up in. But at least in my life, there was a foundation. There was already a foundation. From the beginning, that he was always there. I knew that he was always the one that I love. The only thing is that I made the wrong choices. So I feel, maybe in his life, we don't know how he grew up. We don't know how actually the decisions he made, who was an example to him. But I feel that, we need to understand in our lives that it's about who are you as a child of God, and who are you going to reach out to. And that's why I feel in my life, now that I've changed my life, and now that I've actually stepped into who I was called to be from the beginning, God actually started to show me, it's time to wake up. It's time to make a decision. It's time to get back to where we're supposed to be.
How would you approach someone, especially someone close to you, someone that you see is going down the wrong path?
Yeah.
I assume that it's a very difficult matter, and you need to approach it with grace, but you still want to make sure that they understand the sincerity and the fact that this is a serious matter.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you do that?
So look, it says testimony, which actually means, Lord, do it again. So the word testimony speaks about, Lord, do it again. So whatever you did in my life, please do it in someone else's life that I'm going to talk to. So I think that for me, the approach is always, I used to be lost, but I was found. And I always go to people, approaching people they're busy with the wrong things, by sharing my story, by actually telling them that, you know what, I also used to be in a place where I didn't know who I really was. And I start sharing my love, and I start sharing the love of God into the people's lives.
How about when trying to change, but still all of these people know the old version of you?
Yeah, look. In the beginning, it was a long road. I mean, people remember exactly who the Mark was. Okay, and as you start walking, people start seeing the change in who you actually are, and it's a big thing. I mean, look, in the area where you are familiar, where people know who you are, it's a very difficult thing, but action speaks louder than words. When you start focusing on who you are, and you start changing your life, and you start saying, listen, yeah, I'm not going to be the person that I used to be, people start recognizing it.
Would you suggest to people maybe moving out of that environment? Say someone is trying to change their life. Maybe it's someone who has been off the rails, who's really had it bad. Maybe it's just someone that wants to stop drinking. Would you suggest removing yourself from the environment, or would you suggest facing the environment head on?
Yeah, look, it's actually a two-way discussion. I mean, first of all, you need to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, and you are going into an area where it's still familiar things, and you haven't actually found your identity in Christ, it's going to be a place where you might get caught back into the old life. But if you are someone that is solid already, you can go into areas where you used to be. Like, for example, myself, I can go into any area where I used to be, but the enemy is not going to get me down. The enemy can try a lot of different ways and tricks, like he always does, to try and actually play with your mind, but he can never get me back into addiction. So for me to go into the environments where I used to be, where I actually where people used to know me in, I can go into that areas, and I can be an inspiration to other people in that areas. But for people that are still struggling, that still don't know who they are, stay away from the wrong friends. Stay away from the wrong places until you know who you are in Christ.
I hear the way you speak about it, and it sounds like you don't see this happening in any other way than finding God.
Yeah, there's no way. Look, it's who the Son sets free is free indeed. So if you have been found by Christ, it's an amazing thing that actually happens. So even for myself, in 2008, I actually already messed up a lot. And 2008, I went to my home, and I saw that, things between me and my wife was not good, because she was actually pregnant with my little girl, and I was actually in a place of doing the wrong things, keep on doing the wrong things, being out on the streets, being out in partying. And you know what happened was, I went to a church, Doxadeo, and the Doxadeo where I went to see the pastor. And I love Jesus. All along, I always loved him. I knew that he was always there for me, but I still chose the wrong type of lifestyle. And when I went to this pastor, I said to him, listen, I messed up. I want to change my life. And I wasn't really sincere. I wasn't really serious to give my life to Christ, but I wanted to get home and tell my wife about what I did. So I went to him, and in front of him, I started crying, and, we did the salvation prayer, and I gave my life to Jesus. I went back home. I said to my wife, listen, I gave my life to Jesus. I was at this church, Doxadeo. I gave my life to Jesus. I want to change. And she was looking at me, and, there's that hope that I really hope that Mark is now going to change his life. And we started going to church. And I remember in 2008, we actually went to be baptized in the church. Now, the previous night, I was drinking. So I went being baptized in 2008, and I was still scared that the pastor was going to smell the alcohol on me while I'm getting baptized. I mean, that's demonic. That's demonic. Why? Because it wasn't a sincere heart. It wasn't really a place where I really wanted to change my life. So things just went downhill from there. On 2012, I moved back to Secunda. I actually went back and I started working for Sasol again. And my wife, the one day, she called me to a place and she said to me, like, you know what, Mark, I really had enough. When I look at you, I actually hate you. I can't even stand looking at you. And in that space, you think that you've got everything under control and things are good. I've got 2 little kiddies and things are not really the way they're supposed to be. And you know what? I became this obsessive husband. I became this man that just said, you know what? You are not going to leave me. I will make sure that you stay with me. And Chantelie had to stay with me. My wife had to stay with me because it was this forced relationship until 2015. I'm talking about 3 years. 3 years that I actually almost forced her to stay with me. 2015, she came to me and she said, Mark, I really had enough now. And, you've tried everything. You showed me, you can't change. And then what happened was I actually started to send her video clips. There's like this obsessive husband sending video clips of preachers. And there was a guy by the name of Clayton Jennings. And it was all little clips of poetry. And because I loved rap music and I loved poetry, I started sending her these videos to actually show her that, you know what, I am trying to change. Look at the videos. Look at what I'm looking at. And the one day I'll never forget, 2015, I actually realized that Clayton Jennings is now coming to South Africa from America. And he's going to come to a conference. And you know what I did? I said to her, I'm going to this conference. And I'm not only going to go, I'm even going to take my dad with. Because when you take your dad with, my dad is always proud of me. And I knew when he get home, he's going to tell everyone that Mark gave his life to Christ. So I had a plan. It wasn't really because I wanted to give my life to Christ. Okay, I had a plan. And the plan was to go all the way to Joburg. Clayton Jennings is going to preach. He's going to have an altar call. I'm going to run to the front. I'm going to give my life to Christ. I'm going to get home. My dad's going to tell the whole world how Mark just gave his life to Christ. And my wife's going to take me back. And that's exactly what I did. We went to the conference. I ran to the front, gave my life to Christ, forced out tears because I was almost like an actor. I could easily force tears. Came back to my dad. He was happy for me. I came home. I said to Chantelie, I gave my life to Christ. She looked at me and she said, I know you, Mark. Nothing's going to change. And you know what? Nothing did change. But the one thing that happened in my life, Leroux, is I started falling in love with Jesus. I took the word and I started going into the word. And I started realizing how amazing God is. I will never forget. I read Romans 103 verse 12. Psalms 103 verse 12. Where it says, He removes your transgressions as far as the east is from the west. I will never forget, I went to a church and the pastor actually preached about removing from east to west. And I'm sitting in this church and I'm listening to this message and it says that when a pilot flies from east to west, there's no stop. When they fly from north to south, there's a stop in the earth. But when it goes from east to west, it just keeps on turning. And I took the scripture again and I read and it says that He removes your transgressions as far as the east is from the west. It actually says that he takes it and He puts it into a sea called forgetfulness. So He removes it and He forgets it. And I was like, so everything I've done, He removes and He forgets. And I started falling in love with Jesus all over again. And I remember that, there was things that I did that I couldn't even tell to a rock. And I said, Lord, You remove everything, so I take it. And I started getting part in a youth group. I started becoming part of the church. Chantelie started to come with me. She didn't divorce me, but she was also not ready to really be back with me. But she started coming to church with me. In around 2017, God woke Chantelie up with a dream that she's going to miss out if she doesn't come back to me. And our journey started. And I started to really fall in love with who Jesus was in my life. And you know what? One thing that of people was, the homeless, they can come to me in my old life. I was always going to swear at them, chased them away from me. And God actually, he flipped it upside down. And he made me fall in love with the homeless people. And he actually gave me a street ministry. And I started to become a street minister. I went to the streets. I started to minister on the streets. And I actually came to a place where I fell in love with people to such a point that I just wanted to help people. 2018, myself, I went to work the one day. And at work, God said to me that, where he wants to take me, he can't take me if alcohol is involved. Because by 2018, before April, I wasn't drinking like I used to, but I was still drinking now and again. And 2018, at work, he spoke to me for the first time. And he said to me, where he wants to take me, he can't take me if alcohol is involved. I got home that night and I said to Chantilly, something happened at work. I have to tell her. And she said to me, something at work happened to her. She needs to tell me what happened. And I said to her, no, tell me. And she says, at work, God said to her, where he wants to take her, he can't take her if alcohol is involved. And immediately myself and Chantilly, 2018, April 2018, we were released of alcohol. And we haven't had a drop since that time.
It's a beautiful story, man.
Yeah.
And I got chills as you told it. Do you think you would have had the same end destination if you didn't go through all of the difficulties? If you didn't go through the marriage struggles, if you didn't go through the addiction struggles, do you think they played a necessary role in creating who you are?
Look, to be honest with you, for where I am at the moment, yes, definitely. All the things that I actually went through, I do feel God was preparing me for what's to come. Because you won't believe this. After 2018, after April, we've been released from alcohol, myself and my wife. We actually, 4 months later, we got asked to actually run a new life addiction support group. So God was actually preparing us for this group. Because I can't sit in front of people struggling with addiction. But in the meantime, I'm still struggling with my own addictions. So he was already lining something up. And I do believe all the struggles from the past, he was preparing me for something more. So 2018, we started running a new life addiction support group, and we started seeing people's lives changed. Now, the one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to start helping people, sending them for rehabilitation. The one thing that I always knew is that I never wanted a rehabilitation center. Okay, I don't want to be in that place where I have a place and I actually work with people in addiction. I will preach, I will teach, I will motivate, I'll try to lead and I'll try to guide. But I definitely don't want a place where I sit with 80 to 100 people, at once struggling with addiction. But God had different plans. Okay, so in 2020, December, I was actually in a place of thinking, what's next? And God started to speak to me and he says, you know what, I'm going to release you for something else. And over myself and Chantilly, there was a prophecy spoken over us that together we're going to do something for the kingdom. And I was always asking God, what is going to be something that we are going to do together for the kingdom? So my lead pastor from the church came to me and he said, Mark, you need to pray for our church. We want to open up a rehabilitation center. And I said, no problem, I'm going to pray for you. 2020 December. So I started praying for this church for a rehabilitation center. So he asked me, listen, but don't you want to run it? I said, no, I'll come and preach, I'll come and teach, but I'm definitely not going to run it. He said, okay.
I'll pray for it.
I'll pray for it. I'm going to pray for it with you. And I started praying. December 2020, I will never forget. I was, we just bought a house. The enemy starts to come and play tricks on my mind. How about just this December? How about just having one drink next to your swimming pool in your house? And I'm like rebuking the enemy. That whole December, the attacks of falling back into addiction was so hard. It was such a big battle that I was fighting. And I knew something was up. Something was coming. But I kept on praying for this rehabilitation center, for the church, for Lighthouse Church in Secunda. And in March 2021, the one day I was actually taking a homeless guy from the streets and I was sending him to our rehabilitation center in Vanderbijl. It's actually a rehabilitation center that I partnered with all along. And I was sending all the guys from my support group to this rehabilitation center. The center's name was Yahweh Rapha, and the owners, Gary and Tracy Mortimer, they're actually running the rehabilitation center. So all the guys that I was helping from the streets, I was sending to the rehabilitation center. March 2021, I get home after sending someone to the streets. The guy looked at me and he said to me, Mark, don't ever stop doing what you're doing. On my way home, I'm in tears. I'm in a place of, I say, Lord, thank you that we are able to send people for help. I get to my house, I get onto the couch, and on my couch, God speaks to me and he says, you're opening a rehab. And I look at Chantelie and I said to her, God just said we're opening up a rehab. She looks at me like I'm crazy. But you never wanted a rehab. I said, that's what God just said, we're opening up a center.
That's how I know it's not myself speaking.
That's exactly that. I phoned Gary. I said to him, listen here, Gary, something weird happened. God just said to me, I'm opening up a center. He says to me that him and his wife, for the last 2 weeks, have been praying that they actually wanted to open another center with a couple that will be able to run it. I said to him, but God just spoke to me about a center. And immediately what happened was, this is March 2021. 1st of April 2021, we started building a center. 1st of June, we opened up Yahweh Rapha Secunda. Gary then came to me and he said to me, listen here, Mark, I will help you to open it up, but it's your center. So we're going to partner, but it's still your rehabilitation center. I said to him, no problem. And I started going into this thing head on. Still working at Sasol, but I do believe that, God's got a specific plan. So I started working in the center. We started getting people in. Today, we are in a place where we've got 80 residents in Yahweh Rapha Secunda. People's lives being changed. We are seeing HIV healed. We are seeing people restored back to their original value. We're seeing guys actually starting to work. We're seeing family restoration. We're seeing dads becoming a dad again into their families. Same way God restored me. Same way he pulled me back into what I was actually supposed to be from the beginning. 2 weeks ago, we actually opened the Women's Center. So from now on, we're going to be able to help women to get into recovery as well. The Women's Center will be able to sleep 50 women. And the Men's Center, we are actually at the moment, we are able to sleep 80 people. The Van der Bijl branch, we are helping over 140 men in the center, and the Women's Center in Van der Bijl is also currently on between 35 and 40 women. So it's a long journey, but we are in the place of really starting to see how God steps in and how he's helping people. We've been taking people from the streets. We've been adding people into program. We have a full program. We don't run the center as a government-funded center. It's also not government-funded, but it's also a center where we run it as a school. Classes the whole day, so that people can learn how to walk in their true identity.
Yeah, I can just see, being a business owner, I can see of all the potential problems that might come with running such a type of thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the hurdles, because I don't know if people know this, but you need to feed all these people 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you teach these people. You need to make sure that they don't use while they are there.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're trying to make sure that they don't use when they leave.
Yeah.
I think that's a tremendous amount of responsibility that you're putting on yourself. And I'm grateful that you're doing that. I mean, that must be a tremendous task. What would you say is the main thing that caused people to end up at your facility?
Look, so we're not only helping certain addictions, we're helping all addictions. Okay, so we had guys in the center that had gambling problems, never ever even in drug addiction or alcohol addiction. Okay, we had guys in the center for pornography. So it's everything that leads to the point of feeling, you need help. And but mainly it's drug addiction, alcohol addiction. So it's again, what is the root cause of problems? Where does it start? And we need to get to the root. What is the root? Most of the guys, rejection, never having a father figure in their lives. A lot of guys actually going through certain things in their lives where they've been abused. Where they actually were bullied in school. Certain stress, certain anxieties.
Like previous traumas
previous traumas.
that creates them needing something else.
There we go, definitely. Some people telling them they're not worthy. People telling them that, you know what, you're a worm in the dirt. You're someone that's never going to make it. And wrong friends. Very, very important. Wrong friends. Wrong idols. I mean, you know, in the beginning we spoke about, you know, the idol that I had. Wrong idols. Who is your idol? I mean, girls will come to you and say, but you know what, my heart is broken because of a guy who left me. Okay, the one thing that we need to understand is that maybe that boy was your idol. It's something that you idolized. When we actually put God first in our lives, you know, you will suddenly start to see that, you know what, everything that you are going through, God's going to take you through it. Everything that you face in your life that's not positive, you're going to get through it if you stay focused on who He says you are. And we need to learn in our lives that we need to lead. We actually need to turn to God. We need to, you know, in Scripture it says that we need to turn from our wicked ways. You know, God actually, you know, it's Scripture that says, you know, if my people called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I will hear for them and I will heal their lands. Their land speaks about our lives. It speaks about our bodies. You know, when we actually humble ourselves, when we start to understand, you know what, God's got a plan for our lives. He's actually got a purpose for our lives. You know, He made us because we already have value. And you know what, when we think about value, value is always determined by the price that is paid. And I mean, our lives got bought with the blood of the Lamb, with the blood of Jesus. So we need to know that, you know what, doesn't matter what we face in our lives, we're going to get through it if we stay focused on who Jesus is. But I think we need to humble ourselves. We need to say, you know what, I do have a problem, and let me get help. I knew I had a problem. All along I knew I had a problem. But I was just in a place where I didn't want it to face the reality that I need to stop something for something to happen.
Yeah, and the ego, of course. The ego doesn't want you to change.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're a made man.
Definitely.
You want to keep going. You don't want to say, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I've screwed up a big part of my life. You don't want to admit that type of thing.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
by changing, you admit that.
Yeah. And I mean, remember one thing, Leroux, the biggest thing of our lives is identity. People think addiction is the problem. It's not addiction. Addiction is part of it, yes.
But it's a symptom of the problem.
There we go. But it's identity. You don't know who you are. So you go for an interview, you don't get a job. Suddenly you feel like, you know what, it's because I'm worthless. It's because I'm not good enough. Okay, and that's exactly what the enemy wants to speak to you. The enemy wants to speak lies over your life so that you say, but you know what, I'm never going to make it. I mean, that's the reason why most people fail in life. It's because of the idea, the mindset that they have. And if we think about our mindset, I mean, Jesus says, put on the helmet of salvation. So what He says is, put on the helmet so that you can stop the flaming darts of the enemy. And what do? We remove the helmet of salvation. And we actually allow the enemy to speak louder than the voice of God. And that's why identity is so important to me. So what I've done is I've created an identity course that we actually do for the guys in the center. And the I in identity speaks about, first of all, everyone needs to understand one thing. I'm forgiven. Doesn't matter what I did. If I gave it to Jesus, He says that I don't only forgive it, I forget it. And He doesn't remind us of that again. And we need to walk in that. That's why I said earlier, who the Son sets free is free indeed. And then comes the second part, the D in identity, that says you need to die to yourself. You know, one thing about myself is that, you know, I've always lived a life full of pride. You know, I've always lived a life, you know, I was not the person being bullied. I was not the person being rejected. I was the one rejecting. I was the one actually influencing my friends to do the wrong things. And when I came to Christ, I had to deny myself. I had to humble myself. I had to step out of denial. And I needed to understand that, you know what, I need to change my life. Because if I don't change, nothing else around me is going to change. And I do feel that's also where, you know, Chantal Lee started coming back to me, is when she could see the humbleness. She could see that there's something changing inside of me. That's no longer darkness. You know, when we give our lives to Christ, what happens is that Christ steps in. Now it says that He's the light of the world. And if He's the light of the world and He lives inside of us, then how can darkness be inside of us? It's light shining through us. You know, and the next one on the course is the E, that actually says the enemy will always speak lies. People telling you that you're never going to get a job. People telling you that you're never going to see miracles in your life. It's a lie. God says that there is miracles going to happen in your life. But what we need to do is fix our minds and our eyes on Him. Keep your eyes single, because He is the light of the world. And you know what? Sometimes He does small little things. Let's celebrate the small things. Don't take thoughts into your mind captive, and actually that's not supposed to be there. And then Scripture says also, guard your heart. Watch what you put into your heart. Because when you take things into your heart that's not supposed to be there, you can't expect good things. And the N in identity speaks then about negative thoughts. You know, in Romans 12 verse 2, it says that we need to stop being conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by renewing the mind. Which says we need to always understand that, you know what, things in life is going to happen. Everything happens for a reason. But what you need to understand is that nothing positive, evil is going to keep happening to you if you follow the light. And we need to step into the light. But we will always have the next one is the T, which says tests to pass. We're all going to face tests. I mean, if I think about my whole journey, if I think about my whole story from where I've been, I went through a lot of tests. At this moment, even with the center, 80 guys in the center, I'm full of tests. The enemy is coming for me. I mean, I'm taking murderers. I'm taking guys that stole, that broke into houses, syndicates. I'm taking them off the streets. The enemy is not happy with me. The test that's coming is always going to be there, but you will pass the test if you stay focused on who Jesus is. Why? Because the I says, I am a son. I'm a son of God. I'm a child of the Most High. And He's got favor upon us. And He wants us to understand that we are walking in His goodness and His kindness. And that's actually the things that leads us to repentance. Which shows us that the T is that we need to trust. You need to trust the timing of the Lord. You see, the timing in many ways in our lives is that we don't always understand God's timing. But the timing is always perfect. And we know in business, we become impatient. In life, we become impatient. I mean, you recently became a dad.
Becoming a dad.
Becoming a dad.
Yeah.
I mean, how beautiful is that? And it was time that actually is perfect now for that to happen.
I agree. We felt earlier would have been a better time.
Yeah.
But now, knowing what I know, it's the best time.
There we go.
It's the perfect time.
There we go. And then the last one says that the why. Everything in life is your choice. You see, you're free to make your own choices, but you're not free of the consequences. So what we need to understand is in our life is that you can choose to change or you can choose to stay the same. If you choose to stay the same, you're going to remain the same. You can't expect a different result by doing the wrong things over and over and over in your life. But as soon as you surrender, God steps in. You say, I love Jesus. I love Him so much because I've seen how He restores. I've seen how He takes young boys, that's gangsters, how He actually brings them to a place of reconciliation, how He brings them to a place of getting jobs. And that's what we are, that's what pushes me, that's what drives me, is to see victory in people's lives. You see, our identity is very important, but also we actually need to put into our lives healthy habits. Mm. We need to know who we are. And we need to know that God never wants us to be not successful. Everyone in life, He wants us to be successful. But we all need to understand the gifts and the talents that we have. There's a lot of things that sometimes we ourselves, we hide it. Mm. We keep it away from the people that we can actually start showing who we really are.
Mm. I agree with all of that you said. And I also think that our identity is such an important thing. I struggled with identity after my accident.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about this many times because my identity was rooted in what I did.
Yeah.
And after my accident, I couldn't do it anymore.
Mm.
And I would assume that if you're in a gang, if you're a drug dealer, if you, whatever you're doing, and it might be something wrong, and you stop doing that, you lose a big part of your identity.
Yeah.
And that is quite scary, especially to a young male.
Yeah, definitely.
Because probably you had some dominance in that role, you had some power in that role, you had authority, and all that goes away when you stop that thing.
Definitely. And look, it's difficult with the younger boys. I mean, what they're doing is what they know. I mean, for me, myself, say I was 17 years in addiction. 17 years, that's what I knew. And suddenly God pulls you out of that. And even myself and Chantelie, I mean, I gave my life to Christ in 2015. 2019, we only renewed our vows. So we have to actually learn to get to know each other from the beginning again. Because we knew each other in addiction. And it's the same with these guys. You take them from the streets. What they know is the streets. What they know is how to hustle, how to get by. And now you need to change the whole way of how they used to do things and start to do it in a godly manner. Do new things in a godly manner. So it's a beautiful thing to see, but it's also a very hard thing to get 100% right.
I can think that. You've spoken so many times about your wife, and for my scenario, it's the same thing. I wouldn't have been able to continue and to evolve in the way that I did without a strong woman. Do you agree on that?
I agree 100%.
How big of a role did you think Chantelie played in who you have become and your process?
Yeah, look. First of all, I didn't want to lose her. So I mean, if that's the first part, because she's beautiful, she's actually my other Holy Spirit. She's the one telling me, Mark, you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have done that. And I think, you know what, when it comes to the role that she plays, it's a very, very big role in me staying focused on who I am. It's easy for us to sometimes make the wrong decisions, but she's always the one pulling me back and saying, just remember one thing. Why are you doing it? Why are we doing it? We're doing it for, and then we reminded again that, you know what, whoa, hold on. Because, we as men, we tend to do the opposite of what we're supposed to do. And she's there to pull me back into who I am.
I'm trying to think about, would there be a role for a partner to play in this rehabilitation? I can think that you don't really want someone who comes to the rehab to get them into a relationship and
nope.
I mean, but is it possibly something afterwards that you would say, listen, get a good partner?
Yeah.
Is that something that you advise?
That's 100%. I mean, look, the thing is that if you were to get in addiction, unless the female part also gets help, it's a very difficult journey. If you come to change your life, but let's say, for example, your wife are still in addiction at home, the chances for you going back into addiction is 95%. Yeah. Okay. But if both of you get help, the chances of you guys running the race together, and we've got testimonies of that, there's a higher chance of that actually working. Now, in the center, I'm sitting with 80 guys in the center, and I call them our boys. But all the boys that I'm having in the center, the focus for me is when I'm preaching, when I'm speaking to them, is to make them very much aware that there's a godly woman waiting for them on the outside.
Mm-hmm. You see, and they should become the man.
There we go.
That suits that woman.
There we go. It's the same like for me, for example. I've got a little girl. She's not so little anymore. She's 15. But I need to be the example of a dad that she needs to know that I'm a Jesus dad. And when she meets someone in her life, he also needs to treat her like God's daughter.
But she already has the example of that.
There we go.
She needs that example.
But if I didn't change my life, she was never ever going to have the example of that.
Yeah, and she would probably, that's just with the statistics, she would probably get someone like the person that you were.
Exactly, there we go. And you know what, I always said to my daughter that when someone comes to my door asking for my daughter's, can I speak to your daughter? I will ask them, tell me first, who's the most important person in your life? And if they say, no, sir, your daughter, then I say, you can go. Yeah. Jesus needs to be the most important person in anyone who meets my daughter's life and all my sons. The reason for that is because then I know the way they'll treat them. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that's a message that we are speaking to the guys in the center as well, is that you need to remember one thing. If you think you're going to change someone, you can't change people. Even myself, I've got 80 guys in the center. I'm not changing them. I'm loving them. I'm leading. I'm trying to guide. I'm trying to motivate. I'm teaching. But Jesus does the fixing. You can never ever take yourself and say, but I'm the one actually healing them. There's no way. And it's the same with our families. I mean, you can't go back into a relationship where things were actually already wrong from the beginning and you think that you're going to fix it.
You're still broken yourself. You can't really do it.
Exactly. And when two broken don't make a whole. So what you need to understand is that you need to be in a place where you realize who you are. And so sometimes you have to make a decision on, what's the next steps moving forward. But also understanding that there's a godly woman on the outside for men. Same with the girls. There's a godly man also waiting on the outside for the girls.
Take me through the process. Someone gets sent to you, or someone gets referred to you, or they pitch up at your gate at the center. What happens?
Okay, so look, we actually have a street ministry still. That we go to the streets and we actually minister to guys from the streets, and that's where we identify guys from the streets as well. I've got a new life addiction support group running at our church every Thursday night on 7 o'clock. So I've never stopped the group. So from 2018, I'm still part of the support group. And that's also a place where I identify guys that I want to help. Okay, remember for me, it's about helping people. It's not about, if I said in the beginning, I never wanted the center. But after God said, listen here, you're going to open one, I needed to be obedient. And the one thing about obedience is that obedience is essential to unlock someone's potential. And the thing about potential is that, I see potential in people. And when people start coming to my group, I actually identify certain guys. And that gives me the opportunity to help them. Same way people do rock up at my gate as well. They're coming to help. They want help. And then I've got families also phoning and saying, listen here, we want help for our children. So when they come in, obviously we do have the rules of the place, and we do have certain steps that needs to be taken for us to help people. Like I said, I'm not a government funded center, so we are a private center, but we are helping a lot of people from our side as well. But when they start coming in, it's a 5-day detox where we actually clean them up. We've got an intake monitoring room. Okay, so the intake monitoring room is to get them in. We detox them for 5 days. We monitor them for another 5 days, depending on the attitude, depending on how they are. We will move them into the house. Okay, once they're into the house, they start getting into the classes. Okay, so we've got a full program. We start in the morning.
Basically, joining a university.
It's a school. We actually see it as a school of ministry.
Yeah.
It's a school of ministry. So what happens is guys come in every single morning. They wake up. We've got morning duties. They've got breakfast, and then they go into class. So from 9:30, from 10 o'clock all the way until 1 o'clock, they're in class every single day right through the week. On Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 4, we have a workstation. Only on a Monday and a Wednesday. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have a sports station. That's when the guys are gymming, they're playing soccer, they're doing sport. Okay, and then every evening we've got something going on. Monday evenings, house rules. Tuesday evenings, prayer nights. Wednesday evenings, movie nights. Thursday evenings, Bible study. Friday evenings, the highlight of the week for the guys, we call it Club Jesus. Then we've got a worship night where the guys they even dress up for the Club Jesus worship night. And then on Sundays we have church. Okay, so we've got a lot of courses that we run. We've got, like I said, we've got a identity course. We have truth about drugs and alcohol. We have a Celebrate Recovery 12-step program. That's also everything Jesus and biblical. We've got a 7 Habits of Highly Effective Sons and Daughters course. It's the 7 Habits of Stephen Covey, but I've redeveloped it into a biblical course. Then we also have an Investment in Excellence course, because remember, the guys, they are investing into their lives. And we need to help them to understand that they can become excellent. And we need to get them geared up for that. Then we have a Heart of Addiction course to actually get to the root of the problem, so that we can start to sort those things out before they go back into the real world on the outside. So there's a lot of different things that we run, because we need to get guys to actually have a full understanding, skills development, right through, deal with the inventory, deal with things that they need to deal with in the center, so that when they get to the outside, there's nothing still bothering them, still that's there that still can lead them back into addiction.
Okay, so how long is the typical person who comes there, how long
Okay.
are they there for?
The program is a 6 months in-house program. Okay, so when guys come in, it's a 6 months minimum program, which means, depending on the results of the person, I might see some guys need to be longer, and then I'll discuss it with the families, but most of the guys, 6 months. After 6 months, we give them a certificate of completion of program, and then they go into the new life on the outside. Okay, so we have an integration process to integrate them back into society. But the most important thing for guys completing program is that we get them a job as soon as possible. You'll know this as well. If there's no plan, to fall back into your old lifestyle is very, very high. The possibility is very high.
Yeah, because you need to survive.
You need to survive.
Money.
Yeah. And also, sometimes families don't understand when guys are at home, they're looking for work, they're not getting work. It's easy for families to say, but you know what, you're not doing your part. You're not really going all the way out to get a job. And before we know it, families sometimes will force guys, into saying, you know what, why are you not going, why do you not get a job? Why are you not, why have you been in that place? Where have you been? And some of the guys actually relapsed because of pressure from families. So in the program, we need to teach them that. We need to teach them that, whenever the family is putting pressure and you don't fall back, remember who you are as a child of God, and remember what God has established inside of you.
I can assume getting back into civilization and trying to fit back in after being away for 6 months, that could be quite difficult.
Yeah, and look, it's something to get used to for the guys. Okay, but the thing is, in the program, we actually prepare them for the outside world. So when they get back, it's a new journey. And some of the guys will phone me and say, but you know what, Uncle Mark, it's a lot tougher outside than it is in the center. But because life is quick on the outside, we all know it. You need to make a new life on the outside. But the thing is that you need to be prepared for the outside, and that is what we do in the program.
What happens if a person relapses? Do you allow them back in? Do you rework the course again with them?
So look, if a guy relapse, we bring them back into the program, but then they come back for 12 months. Okay, they come back for 12 months. Some of the guys don't want to stay for 12 months. So we'll see where they are, and we'll start to work with them. I do believe that accountability is one of the most important things. When I think about myself, in 2018, God released me from alcohol. Okay? And he gave me a support group. The support group was my accountability. It was keeping me accountable not to fall back into addiction. In 2021, God gave me a Rehab. So for me, I've got 80 guys keeping me accountable. You hear what I'm saying? So on the outside, who's keeping you accountable? That's why it's important for guys on the outside to still come to church, to be plugged into the word, to be plugged into a church. Because remember...
So even if they leave, they come to church on Sunday.
They have to.
They join the other guys who are currently there.
There we go.
And probably to show them also it is possible.
There we go, definitely. They come, look, and they meet out on the outside. Okay, we've got a house on the outside where guys are staying that's completed program. And some of them, they don't all stay in that house, but they're actually coming to church. They're coming to support group. They're having on Tuesday nights, they have their own prayer nights. So these are things that actually keeps you accountable. And very important for guys to see that there's victory on the outside.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. I can just think of the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
And bringing kids up while having this massive responsibility. Are you proud of what you're doing?
Look, I love it. I love it. I think that the biggest thing about it is that I'm seeing families restored. To have family visits. Like, for example, in the center, we've got every first weekend of the month, we have a family visit. So you see all these families coming in and seeing their husbands, sons, brothers for the first time in a month, for example, 2 months or 3 months. And when you see the joy and you see how proud I am of how they are of the families, for me, it's what it's about. I'm very proud of the job that we're doing, because we're seeing people starting new jobs. We're seeing people actually, I've got guys that was in jail that's now suddenly working for companies again. I've got people that was totally lost lost everything that they had, restored back into a new job, and now paying for people in the rehab. Yeah, guys who completed program that actually phoned me and said, Mark, I've got someone that I want to help. And out of their new salary, they are actually sponsoring someone. And I mean, that shows you that, there's results in that. And that's what we're striving for.
Changing lives.
Changing lives.
I can imagine. What are the things that you need from people to either grow what you're doing or to continue what you're doing? I can just assume the amount of food that 80 young guys eat is a tremendous amount.
Yeah, they can eat. And look, they love eating. I mean, if you think about guys, suddenly, drugs are out. The one thing that they do is they start to eat. And one thing that they love doing is gymming. They love training. So suddenly they are eating a lot more than they used to on the streets. So look, obviously, if there's anyone feeling in their hearts that they would like to just become part of helping one person, they can make contact with me. And
I'm going to put your details in the description.
Please, man, yeah.
And, okay, but so financial, of course, any financial donations would help. You would put it to good use, and they'll go through you. I'm going to add that description in the link.
Thanks for that.
What else are there? Are there maybe company affiliations who you would want to reach out to say have a appyship or something that you can join after completing the course? Do you have things like that already?
Look, I actually am starting with that to partner with some of the companies on the outside, because you know what, Leroy, I can open a construction company at the moment at the center. I've got plumbers, I've got tilers, I've got builders, I've got electricians, I've got people that's got all different types of skills. And when you start working with these guys, you actually see the potential that they have. Mm-hmm. And most of the guys, they never had the opportunity to actually do something. So you know what? If there's companies on the outside that says, we're willing to give someone an opportunity. I do have companies that already took some of the guys in. I've got guys that started working for churches. I've got guys starting to work for, eco rubber company, for example. I've got a friend who's the owner of an eco rubber company. He gave one guy an opportunity. He's working for him full time. I've got Fruit and Veg City that actually took some of my guys and they are now working for them. So you know what? It's always about an opportunity. You feel that I need an electrician. How about giving one of the guys an opportunity and see actually the potential that they have? So it will look. I've got everything all around. So if there's anyone that needs maybe someone to come and become a plumber or a welder or a builder or a welder, I do have the guys in the center.
What about if someone wants to get involved personally by just maybe it was them going through this process already, maybe wanting just to communicate with the guys or talk to the guys or just helping out? I can assume you need some volunteers.
Yeah, look, we've got a lot of people actually volunteering and coming in. I've got my counselors. We do have our social workers. We've got your nurses, and I've got guys from all around coming to give testimonies with the guys. The only requirement will always be the most important requirement is you speak Jesus. Okay, when you're coming there and you don't speak Jesus, sorry, you're not allowed to speak to my boys. But if there's anyone that wants to become part of this, to come and maybe share a testimony, come and share a story, maybe uplift the guys, motivate the guys, that's it's always welcome at the center. You remember, the center is not. It's yes, I'm the owner, but it's still the house of God.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and I know you have plans for the future. And I pray with you that everything works out the way that it should.
Yeah, thanks so
much. We know that it will. And I'm very inspired by your story and the fact that I've known you a long time. And the fact that you were able to apply yourself in such a positive way and make such a big change.
Yeah.
I'm sure looking back after a couple of years, you can be really proud of what you have accomplished already.
No, thank you so much, Lulu. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the talk, Mark.
Thanks for your time. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for the opportunity to actually come and speak about, the center. The center's name is Yahweh Rapha Recovery Centre. So it's actually the Yahweh Rapha is God, our healer. And he's the one that's doing the healing, in the center with the boys. But thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
It's excellent talking to you, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.